You ready?
Starting.
Hello, and looking forward to some really interesting conversation with Dr. Roshani today. Dr. Chopra and Roshani have already had a very, very informative session on type 2 diabetes. Today, I'm going to be talking to her on obesity and how one can tackle this, the prevalence of obesity, the way it's just, increasing through the world and even in India. So welcome to our show, welcome to Studio Aesthetic, and welcome to a very holistic way of talking on things that have been traditionally handled by drugs. At Studio Aesthetic, our endeavor has always been to blend in modern day medicine with its holistic roots, and we're so happy to have you, Roshani, on board today, because I know how much of a holistic commentator, holistic writer, and how much of a holistic person you are by yourself. So welcome to the show, and let's get started. How on earth do you manage to look the way you do?
Oh my. Well, I have kept photographs of my awkward teen years when I was definitely overweight. Actually, there was at the peak, I might have weighed in my childhood years what I weigh now, but the percentage of body fat versus muscle was quite different. And so the weighing scale doesn't tell the whole story. That's one big thing to take away. And I've gone through I'm a Gujarati, so I've gone through my carbohydrate predominant, malnourished, not getting enough protein life for probably the first 3 decades. I didn't really know.
I mean, how can you say malnourished and carbohydrate rich together? I mean,
Yes.
isn't this a thing that if you're eating so much, how can you be malnourished?
Exactly, especially when the textbooks say that carbohydrates are energy-giving foods and proteins are body-building foods. But the fact is, carbohydrates are not essential. Carbohydrates do not need to be consumed.
Are not essential,
Not essential.
not needed at all.
Not needed at all. You have
Did you
essential.
hear that, everyone?
You have essential amino acids and you have essential fatty acids. There are no essential carbohydrates. And so when you're eating a predominantly carbohydrate-rich diet, we all growing up in the 70s and 80s were scared of fat, so we were all eating low-fat diets. So we were eating carbohydrates mostly, low fat, and not enough protein. So protein malnourished.
Okay. Tell me, what is a carbohydrate-rich diet?
The average Indian diet is a carbohydrate-rich diet. The average vegetarian Indian diet will be carbohydrate.
And if you can break down the carbohydrate foods that we are consuming.
Sure. So the typical Indian breakfast options, whether you say upma, poha, paratha, sabudana, cereal. If you're getting modernized, you might have a muesli or an oats or a cereal from a box. It's all processed grains. You go to mid-morning snack, people want to have a fruit. It's fructose, it's carbohydrates. You go for lunch, people have a minimum of 2 rotis or a portion of rice, and then they put some vegetables and maybe some dal with it. If you're Gujarati like us, or if it's a sambar, it's a very watery dal. If you're from the north, your dal would be more thick. That would probably be the one protein on the plate finally. Some curd maybe for some people. And maybe a little bit of salad, maybe some peanuts. So you're talking like barely you've reached about 6 to 8 grams of protein in this meal. It's mostly carbohydrates and vegetables. Then you come to your evening where people have a cup of tea or coffee. They want something along with that. Again, generally into carbohydrates, whether it is some snacky like a biscuit. People seem to think that biscuits are healthy, so they will, or a light biscuit, they'll dip something and they want that biscuit. It's fully carbohydrate. So they'll have makhanas, lotus seeds, fox nuts, carbohydrate predominant. Puffed jawars or nachni biscuits or those bajri khakras, all carbohydrates.
What you say is all these millets are all carb rich.
If you look per 100 grams, if you take the NIN book, which is the National Institute of Nutrition by the ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research, they have tables per 100 grams of edible portion. About 67 to 72% of wheat, rice, barley, oats, and all the millets, 67 to 72% is carbohydrate.
Wow, that's something I didn't know. So when someone's consuming a gluten-free diet, They're just stopping the wheat.
Right.
The rest of everything still comes on. So what is a good replacement for these? What's a good substitute?
Well, I rewind. I'm like, what are we trying to fix? Why, if you are taking wheat in your plate and you're saying, I want to remove wheat from my plate, what is it that you're trying to do? If you're trying to add protein, you don't need a grain. You don't need a millet or so. India's on this thing about promoting millets, okay? Which I have no problem with that because a whole millet or a whole wheat or a whole rice is a whole grain.
Yes.
But when you powder it to pieces and you process it, the wheat is powdered. So when we say it's such an oxymoronic statement, whole wheat flour. There's no such thing. It's either whole or it's flour.
True.
It cannot be both.
True. Yeah.
If you get a whole wheat grain in your atta, you throw it out.
Of course.
Yeah. So it's powder. So the idea of saying let me replace wheat with something, if I do the assessment of my clients, as an endocrinologist, we were not trained how to do this. I had to go and educate myself on this. And we realized that they're protein deficient. So then, okay, if you move wheat aside, if you put a millet or you put an oat or a barley, etc., or quinoa, you're still moving around within the carbohydrate predominant. You're not really topping up with enough protein. So if we're trying to fix someone's feeling hungry all day, if someone's feeling cravings all day, poor hair quality, hair fall, poor skin, low immunity, if you're trying to fix those things, repeated infections, non-healing joints, chronic pain, not gaining muscle when they go to, in spite of trying to be fit, it's protein deficiency. So then we need to put protein-rich foods on.
So well said. I mean, I think there's a whole lot of fad diets out there, a whole lot of misinformation out there that people, and the easy access to, half knowledge or free flowing conversations that are going in. It's the youngsters, who go through this yo-yo diet phase that, for 2 to 3 weeks they'll do this and then they jump back even more aggressively to what they were doing wrong. And I think that somewhere is leading towards obesity or obesity related issues. So Roshani, what I wanted to check with you is obesity a disease? It's not classified as a disease, but is it?
It depends on each person's experience of it. I would take it down to the individual level. Now there are classifications of BMI and cutoffs where for Asians we have a lower cutoff and for Caucasians and the rest of the world have a higher cutoff. So there is a technical classification of what is obesity, what is overweight category. And the reason for these cutoffs is that there is a correlation that as somebody's body weight goes up, especially if they're gaining body fat, now BMI by itself is not a great tool because you could be gaining muscle. As we were talking, I've put on 4 kgs of muscle, so I've just pushed my BMI higher, but I have not become obese. I have not become overweight. I have actually become healthier because what I've gained is lean, healthy muscle tissue. So at the individual level, is this person impaired in their daily life? Are they unhealthy on their blood work? Is there something that they wish they could do and their body is not supporting that? So it's more about, and this is not to blame a person at all. I think there's a lot of sort of debate going on in the Western world and so in India, is should obesity be called a disease? And therefore should the medications for obesity, this is a very big push, and you can follow the money trail to, see what's happening there, is therefore people need to be given medication for obesity. Now that's a sort of a tricky area, very tricky area. So rather than getting into what should we call it, how I want to show up in the world is the person in front of me, can I help them? If they have goals with their weight, body fat, body muscle, and fitness and overall body performance, can I help them achieve that with less medication? Through lifestyle change. Is there a role for medication in this world for people who are really struggling? Yes. The same way if someone is deeply suicidal, we need to give them some emergency therapy so that they can stabilize. Someone needs to be prescribed something. Obesity can reach a point where somebody feels like my only hope is to get on medication. So I'm not denying the role for advancing medical science, but if we think that's all we can offer, then we're doing an injustice to empowering people with what they can without feeling so lost.
Absolutely. See, we do know that obesity leads to many other diseases, lifestyle diseases. And there comes a point where the ease of availability of the new drugs and medication that's there in the market that helps you, really come down on the weighing scale.
Yes.
I know patients after patients who are taking this, and when I ask them how long, and they say more than a year now, I'm totally appalled by the fact that they're taking these expensive injectables every week just to bring down their body weight, and yet what do you see? You see they've lost the fat, but they're all flat.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know? So
Yes, I can talk on that. Is the weight loss that happens on the GLP-1 agonists, the semaglutide category of drugs, known as
so let's use the
The
the easy
brand.
words, the
Ozempic and Mounjaro. Okay,
Yes.
so or the Wegovys. These drugs do cause weight loss. You have to be on that medicine indefinitely if you want to maintain that weight loss. The studies have shown if you stop the prescription, the weight comes back.
or
Okay, within that weight loss, it's not all fat loss. There is muscle loss. So this is what gives you the hanging skin,
yeah.
loose skin. So and for me, the reason why I have avoided prescribing these, because I think I have safer options to give patients, which is if we get to the root of it, and we'll cover that in our coming discussions, then they don't get the hanging skin, they don't get the muscle loss the way you do with these drastic sort of measures. In fact, we're making sure that they're gaining muscle before we get them into. We don't want a weight loss obsessed, weighing skin obsessed weight. Are we improving your body composition? Are we gaining healthy, metabolically lean, active muscle tissue? That's going to help you with your lifespan. I have a problem with, let's help you lose weight now, but when you're in your 50s and 60s and 70s, you'll be frail because we've not helped you protect and preserve muscle.
So well said.
To age gracefully, we're going to all need that muscle mass to not be very powerful.
Absolutely. So, and the fact that you're an endocrinologist and talking about this, you do know that hormones play a big role in everything. So for a woman who is at menopause or around her menopause and she's obese, taking these kind of medications can play a big havoc within your system.
Well, it works through existing hormonal pathways that are there. Okay, so it's not that the medicine is treating GLP-1 deficiency. It's not like in type 1 diabetes, you have insulin deficiency, we're curing that, or we're healing or repairing that deficit with insulin injections. That's not what's happening here. But we're topping up your GLP system with more external, exogenous GLP-1. Your body has it. We're giving you more. So it works by suppressing appetite, delaying the food from your stomach moving ahead, lower down. So your will or your interest to eat has gone down. Now you're a surgeon. You would know that you tell your patients before a major surgery not to eat. They have to come empty stomach. Now the new complication we're seeing is people are coming in for surgery on these drugs, and the anesthetist is finding stomach contents still having food, which didn't leave, even though the time had been given because the stomach is taking that much longer. This becomes a surgical risk on the table. If and to come to a more important point, you mentioned about youngsters and now menopausal women. What really bothers me about prescribing for weight loss is if I'm suppressing your appetite by a prescription, I have not helped you actually learn back your own natural hormonal appetite regulation, which was there when you were born.
Okay, so what is it that you do different?